Episode 76 of Outlander Cast is brought to you by HelloFresh. Please visit HelloFresh.com and use the promo code OutlanderCast. That's just one word, OutlanderCast, to save $35 off your first week of deliveries. All the way from Cranston, Rhode Island, welcome to Outlander Cast. It's a podcast dedicated to the show Outlander on Stars.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host, Mary Larson.
My name's Blake, and I'm about ready to get my costume talk on. I'm not going to lie.
Yes.
I'm ready for it.
Yes.
I love myself some Terry Dresbach. I'm not going to lie. She is the best.
No doubt. No doubt the best. And so, gosh, I like fangirl over Terry. Some of you who follow Outlander Cast on Twitter know that I've even sent her a little video from time to time being like, "Hi, Terry. I think you're amazing. We want to talk."
I kind of really love you.
Yes, we just love her work, and she's just so real. And I'm not going to lie, I want to use the hashtag relationship goals when it comes to Terry and Ron Moore. I mean, Terry is like, Terry and Ron are always so in love with each other, and just so they're all about like doing little PDA, to kind of let each other know that I'm here, I got you, or I like what you just said. So if you've never seen a video of Ron and Terry together, please make sure you do, because as I said, hashtag relationship goals. Terry has said multiple times that Ron is her Jamie.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a big fan of Terry. But in addition to Terry, we here at Outlander Cast have started a new series, which Terry is not necessarily a part of.
Well,
but
this kind of is part of what goes on with Gonelander, the series that we've started.
Yeah, so Gonelander, if you search that hashtag Gonelander, meaning things that are gone or people who are gone in Outlander, is something that we just recently started. And of course, we had Scott Kyle, and we're going to be having some more guests coming on that are no longer associated with Outlander. And the fun thing about Terry is that, of course, she is continuing through Outlander for season 3 and 4, but a lot of her pieces are not.
That's why I said it's still kind of Gonelander.
Yes.
It's still kind of like, kind of there, but not. And, hopefully we get to see some old pieces. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you never know. But for the most part, everything that she has done so far, especially the French stuff.
Yes.
It's gone, man. Thus, partly, kind of, somewhat, Gonelander.
Now, Grant O'Rourke was at the event Through the Stones, which is where I also got to see Terry. Great event in Iowa. I have never been to Iowa.
Right.
It was a very fun experience. So, there's a lot of debate if Grant's character makes it or not through Culloden, but I don't really know if he's gonna, guys, because, he's not able to say, but he wasn't able to say otherwise. So I'm feeling like his interview is Gonelander. I'm just throwing it out there.
Certainly.
And so that's why the next interview that you'll be hearing with Grant will be Gonelander. But those of you who want to hear the rest of these interviews early, I was able to get audio for 4 different interviews at the Through the Stones convention. Mm-hmm. So we have Terry's keynote, which is this one, which is dynamite. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Then there was Grant's keynote. And then there were 2 separate interviews with Terry and Grant together.
Well, I got to say that Grant's keynote was also spectacular. I got a chance to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And he is one funny dude. One funny man.
He surely is.
And, he just feels like that kind of guy that you'd go have a beer with and you would never stop laughing.
Not gonna lie, he had plenty of beers at the event. The poor thing, he and Terry stayed until, honest to God, Blake, like 1 maybe 1:30 in the morning taking pictures with people.
With all the nerds.
And it was so, myself included.
Exactly, nerds.
But it was so funny because you could tell that Grant continued to have beers throughout the evening with his photos. Because if you look at the photos online they took of people in the beginning, he's like sitting up so proud and everything. And then you see different beer bottles start to accumulate on his table. And the more beer bottles there are, the more hysterical
it's like
his
a time
facial
lapse
expansions.
that you can see.
It is. It's pretty great. So, but we have these 4 interviews that are coming up.
Yep.
Today's the first one. But if you wanted to listen to our next interview early, if you just can't get enough and you want to know, oh my God, what was said at Through the Stones, we've got an awesome opportunity for you.
That's right. If you want to get to listen to them early, you can go to patreon.com/OutlanderCast and become a patron of Patreon. You could donate as little as $1, or if you'd like, you can donate $1 billion. It's up to you.
The $10 level
is
going to have access to the interviews early.
Wow, okay.
So we're going to start kind of letting these interviews come out little by little over the next few weeks. But if you want to hear all of the Through the Stones interviews right now, you can do that.
Right. You can go on to patreon.com and donate $10 per month and hear these interviews early. My love, will these be full episodes or just the raw interviews altogether?
It will be just the raw interviews. Okay. So if you wanted to hear this pre-show banter, post-show banter, you'll have to wait till that comes out on iTunes.
That's the beauty of Outlander Cast.
Yes. But the audio themselves treated, Blake does all this amazing sound engineering and treats the audio and to make it beautiful. You will be able to hear those interviews if you become a $10 a month patron. So head on over to patreon.com/OutlanderCast. And we've been taking a lot of time telling you about this, but I am pretty darn excited to talk, to just get into this interview. But
well, before we get into the interview, talk about your experience at Through the Stones. And tell me what it was like for you. Did you have fun? Did you learn a lot? Did you get to meet a bunch of cool people? Because clearly, I did not go. I was stuck at home with the bands, and I should have been. And I think it was a great opportunity for you to go and meet a whole bunch of people, and especially listen to Terry and Grant speak.
Yeah,
what was it like for you?
It was really cool. I'm not going to go too much into it on this episode because Terry's interview is quite long. I think I'm going to save really a full recap for one of the shorter interviews that we have coming up.
Well, give me a taste. Give me a professional tease.
I mean, basically, it was hundreds and hundreds of Outlander fans, television show watchers just like yourself, Blake, and people who've been lifelong book readers. And it was a weekend event. It started Friday evening, and there were shops there that were selling Outlander-themed gifts. Then there was Outlander trivia, which went late into the evening. Terry actually participated for quite some time in the Outlander trivia because she, of course, is a huge Outlander fan. I got to be one of the judges for the Outlander trivia crew, and my friend Mara, who came with me. I know, it was really fun to kind of grade the sheets. The second day, I mean, it was just full of workshops. So if you wanted to know about paper cutting or broom making or, your genealogy of Scotland, or if you wanted to talk about Outlander, they had different discussion groups. And it was just neat because you were around like-minded people who just wanted to talk about the show and gush about it and come up with different theories. And it was just a wonderful, safe space that I thoroughly enjoyed. There was a Parisian dinner that I was able to attend on Saturday night. So, very much in fitting with season 2 of Outlander, people dressed up in costumes like you would not believe. I mean, people must have been working all year on some of these costumes. Yep. Absolutely stunning. It was a really great event. I cannot wait to go. So they are going to be holding the event in 2 years from now. So in 2018 will be the next Through the Stones event, and you better believe it.
Well, technically that's next year, 2018.
Oh God, you're right. I forgot that the new year happened. I've noticed I've been signing checks still this 16, but it'll be definitely in 2018, and I could tell you, I'm going again, and you might be going, Blake.
Oh, I don't know. Someone's gonna watch the kids.
They'll be older by then.
How about this? How about I go and you stay home and watch the kids this time?
You know what? No. I had too much fun. No way.
Well, you did have the pleasure of listening to Terry and Grant speak, and my love, why don't we just get into it? Why don't we let the masses hear what Terry had to say Through the Stones?
I will give a caveat. There is one spoiler inside Terry's interview.
Okay.
For people who have not read Voyager yet, she's going to give a little something away, a little bit.
Is it like costume related?
It is costume related.
Okay, well that's not huge. That's not like ruining the story.
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, you're fine.
But she talks about a couple characters and how it would have led to the costume.
Okay, all right, so let's just say this. It's not a huge spoiler. It's a relatively minor spoiler.
And Terry gives a big thing like, I'm going to be spoiler right now.
Okay, good. All right,
so God forbid, if you don't want the spoiler, just fast forward like a couple of minutes and then you'll be fine.
Okay, good. So there you go. All right, my love, you ready to get to the fantastic talk with Terry Dresbach?
You bet.
All right, let's do it.
Think Downton Abbey, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Vikings. What comes to mind? Well, all of those rely at least some part on the talent of a costume designer to achieve a look that draws viewers into a time period that helps them believe the characters. Sure, with a television show Friends, you could probably give the actors credit cards and say, go buy something, you know, your character, and few people would see the difference. But can you imagine Lady Mary or Captain Picard in jeans and t-shirts? To achieve the realism that Outlander's production wanted, it requires the touch and talent of a master. Nobody other than a true fan of the books and major talent in costuming could have put together Outlander's stunning look. What other show takes from the crofter to the king, from the 1740s to the 1960s, from the wilds of Scotland to the court of Versailles? Terry Dresbach, without a doubt, is the talent that this show required. As a longtime fan of the book series, she brings not only her Emmy-winning abilities to the project, she brings an absolute need to do it right. It was a great day when her husband, who we understand has something to do with the production, convinced her to come out of retirement and throw herself into this project. A Herculean effort from day one. She says that Ron kept pointing out, who the hell else is going to do this other than you? And Terry says, yeah, he was kind of right. Of course he was. Following Terry on Twitter is a great way to get to know her. Through both her personal and her costume accounts, you see a woman who's remarkably open to fans about her love for her husband, his love for her, their amazing 700-year-old Scottish home, her adorable dog, her influences, and the work of her team, even her views on the subject, which shall not be named. She calls herself an adventurer and general bomb thrower. It's obvious that she enjoys the interactions with Outlander fans, and then they enjoy chatting with her, as we found out last night in trivia. She won an Emmy in 2004 for Carnival for Outstanding Costumer in the series, and was nominated for Outlander. Only one, I'm sure, many award nominations and wins to come. The stunning French court dresses, the beautiful tartans, and the entire costume team's amazing work has fascinated viewers and has become as much a part of the show's success as the acting and writing. And now, to give us a better insight into her work and how it was created, it's my pleasure to introduce to you this afternoon, Terry Dresbach.
Are you hearing me? I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I have an idea. I always talk about Ron, and I'll talk about Ron right now because I said to him, what the hell am I going to say to everybody? They've seen it all. It's all been recorded, and it's been on YouTube, and people have watched it a million times, and I can't show pictures of the costumes yet, and everybody's seen season 2 to death. What am I going to do? And he said, don't even worry about it. Just do what you do. Talk. So I don't know how many of you remember the story of, when you tweet in 140 characters, it gets a little tricky. And how many of you don't follow me on Twitter? Oh, Christ, that's a lot of you. What the hell's going on?
We don't have a Twitter account.
Well, get on it. Because I'm there all the time. All the time. You are my everything. I don't know how to do it without you and the dog. well, one of the stories that none of you have heard, this is really good, was Ron and I, early on in our courtship, we decided to go camping, and I was in a dead panic. You guys remember the story, some of you? I was in an absolute panic because Ron doesn't talk a lot. And, his silence on Twitter is not because, of anything other than the fact that the man doesn't talk very much. And I talk a lot. And I said, so what? I'm really nervous about this trip because, we're going to be alone in a campground and there's no TV, there's nothing to distract us, there's nothing. And are you going to get sick of listening to me talk? And he went, no, you don't usually require anybody to respond to you. I was like, excuse me? And he goes, no, you're interesting, and I listen. It's not like I'm not listening. It's just that you don't require a response all the time. And if you did, I'd be right there and I'd respond. But really, you can just go on and do what you do. And I went, okay, that sounds good. And a very successful marriage has been crafted out of exactly that. Although I do have to wait until about 2 cups of tea before I'm allowed to speak to him. So I spend a lot of time sitting there going, you ready yet? You ready yet? You ready yet? So today I just kind of want to chat with you guys, and I'd love to do a Q&A, and I want to kind of do what I always do, which is sort of talk about whatever you want to talk about. I have a few things to share. But as I was coming here, I said, again, what am I going to talk about? And he said, what you always do. And last night, I went back after the trivia game and after interacting with all of you, which was really quite wonderful. And I went back and there was a text message from him saying, I'm at Disneyland and it's a really good day. It's not too crowded. And I hope all is well there. Because he goes off to Disneyland by himself and spends the night and wanders about the park. It's some sort of weird Disney fandom, right? And the really scary thing is that he keeps going to these Disney auctions, and every time I come home, there's more Disney crap around. So, and we've had this ongoing argument about fandom. And I always, because he's a fan of 30 things. I mean, you know how, he's like the Star Trek guy. And then there's Disney, and there's some life-size Kiss dolls that that Meryl and I sent back and forth between the office and home about 30 times in the back of his car. I think they ended up in storage. There's some Big Lebowski dolls. And there's Star Wars. There's Star Trek. And my whole family is fans, right? So my daughter, who I thought was going to be the one saving, she was going to be the one that wasn't going to be a fan, is a fan of, what's the name of that show? It's been on for forever, about the guys and their magical and supernatural. See, I don't even know that shit. See, there you go, right? So she's obsessed with that, and she has a Hobbit thing on her door that says that her house is a Hobbit hole, and she's seen the movie 35 times, so she's a Hobbit freak. And I'm like, okay, and my son can tell you exactly how many bolts are in the side of the Death Star. We had to make a rule with him that you only got 5 minutes at dinner to talk about Star Wars, and then you were cut off. And I live with a man who at night you're watching Seinfeld, and he starts reciting the lines, and I'm very frequently going, who are you? What is up with you in this whole fan thing? And he is at his heart a fan. So when I talked to him last night, I said, how was Disneyland? And he says, it was really great. I ran into 2 other Disney fans in line at some ride, and we got to talking, and then we walked around the park together for 3 hours. I guess talking about how many bolts were in the teacup ride. I'm not sure what they talk about. There's so many good stories. Like the time that I thought that there was his computer was open, and I saw he was talking to Pixie Girl 35 or something, and I was like, oh my God, he's cheating on me. Oh no, I shouldn't, don't look. And I pressed, and it was a Disney fan site. Well, that serves me right. So anyway, after we got to talking about his day of Disney fandom, and he said, so how is it? And I said, it's quite extraordinary. And it's really, the main thing I kind of wanted to start out with today is talking about you. Because the argument he and I have always had is he always says to me, everyone's a fan. And I'm like, oh, I'm not a fan of anything. And he goes, yes, you are. You've been a fan in your life. I had a Get Smart fan club that met underneath our back deck, and nobody wanted to be under the back deck, so that lasted like one meeting. And I've just never, there's really, truly nothing I've ever really been a fan of. And he got really angry at me because he felt that I was putting it down. And I was like, no, I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying I don't understand what makes it tick. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand how you collect the stuff, and I don't understand how you go to conventions. And it's a gene I don't have, and I live in a family of you people. So, but I always feel like it. And my kids, I got into one video game, Skyrim, which I tried to play with one person who kept getting stuck in the water. It's Mandy here. And I got so obsessed with the game that I played it for like weeks and weeks on months on end. I even had a notebook that had like magic potion recipes. And my kids were so excited because they thought that meant I was going to become a fan. And they kept trying to like make signs for me and buy me jewelry associated with that video game. And I'm like, you guys don't get it. I'm just really kind of not getting it. And I said to Ron last night, I think I get it. He has always said that the heart of fandom, and you guys all know he takes a lot of hits, fandom's about love. And see, I'm going to get all choked up, so he must be right. What I saw last night was love. And it was an extraordinary thing to watch all of you love something this much, that you're flying in from, somebody here's from Poland, right? You came from Poland.
I'm here from Chicago. I work in Poland for the years.
Oh, well then. You should have just said yes. It was a much better story. Yes, I'm from Poland. She's going back next week. She's from Poland. Okay. But, the fact that you guys studied all of those answers, that I don't know how anybody knew what any of that. I don't think I said to Ron, I don't think Diana would know half the stuff you guys know. And I think that someone should send her the questions. Just one at a time and see what she knows. Because I clearly didn't read the books. I've been lying to everybody. I don't know any of this stuff. But it was remarkable to see, and it was remarkable to see the costumes, and, my mom's costume over here, which I still get all choked up, the blue robe and the pajamas, and the love, and the care, and the time, and, the toilet seat attached to the back of the chair, and the T-shirts, especially those ridiculous nipple ones. Time looking at women's breasts last night, and the things hanging off of them, and going, this is really bizarre. Well, you guys succeeded. It was very weird. But, it's family. And Ron started talking about the fact that, this is shared experience. In modern culture, this is shared experience. That how many of you in this room are now friends with people that you didn't know before Outlander? A couple people told me last night about how they came to the last convention alone. And how many friends did you walk away with? Yeah, look at this. This is, and he understands this. It's still a little foreign to me, but he gets it, and because he's seen it for years and years and years and years and years in Star Trek fandom, and that, that's the piece of it that people miss. that people focus on the costumes and the T-shirts and the obsessions about how many bolts on the side of a ship and, all the trivia and all the things we know, but at the heart, it's about love. And I never understood what he meant until yesterday. And it's quite an extraordinary thing that you guys have done here. And if Deb were here, I would talk about the extraordinary thing that a fan has done in creating this convention. So maybe tonight I'll get a chance to thank her personally, but I was struck by getting picked up from the airport and having her husband Dan meet me with the suitcases, and her niece was driving the car, and the extraordinary thing that it takes for one individual who runs a florist shop in Iowa to suddenly have something like this happen where people are coming in from all over the country, and and again, that's about love. And you're right. I will not talk about politics. I won't, because it's out of respect for this event, but we need love. We can, that's something. That's something that isn't red state, isn't blue state, knows no party lines. That's something everybody can come together on, and the more of that, the better. So, viva fandom, yeah?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about, it was really great to see Grant. We just did a little press thing with Grant, and God, he's a lovely, wonderful man. He's just, he just is. He's lovely, but they all are. And again, that I hope that you guys can see in our world something reflected of what you guys are about, and see it amongst us. It's like seeing Grant is like seeing my brother or seeing my cousin, or it's a member of my family, and everybody's very close. I haven't seen him for a while. It doesn't matter, and it all starts at the top. And I have my last little riff before I get back to the show is I have this amazing husband. Somebody asked me last night, or actually said to me, what I really like best about you is you and your husband, and I see, the relationship you have. And I do have my own Jamie, and I have you get up.
He has his own way.
Well, yeah. There's a couple of similarities. But when you get up in the morning and you look like hell, you just look really bad, and maybe you've been sick or whatever, and all of a sudden you look up and this guy's staring at you, and you think, is there something on my face? And he goes, you're just so beautiful, and every day. So I'm going home tomorrow, and my crazy kids and the California animals. But and he gets a lot of flack from people. But I can tell you something. There is no way that a man that can love the way that man loves so thoroughly and with such utter romance that this show is not in the best possible hands. So between his understanding of fandom and the fact that he's a hopeless romantic. I mean, on my birthday, I got serenaded last year. A guy shows up with a guitar, and there's a woman singing, and I'm at the top of the stairs, and there's a serenade going down. I mean, it's like living in some sort of movie. It really is. So he gets it. And Matt gets it, and Meryl gets it. We all get it. The actors get it, and you guys get it. And so I think that's about the love spreading. And, everything won't be perfect. I can promise you I'm going to piss you off next season. You know where to find me. I've made a couple of changes. Okay, that's it. And like I said, as long as you're kind, you can yell at me all you like. But there will be things because it's a big. They tried to make, you guys all know, they tried to make this into a movie for the longest time. And, when I was shoving it at Ron, Meryl was shoving it at Ron, I was like, you need to make this into a movie because, 20 years, I think I read it, how many years? 15 years before I met Ron, I read the books. And I went, oh, this would make a great movie. And then when I met him, I'm like, this would make a great movie. And, after a few times of that, when he finally read it, he went, you can't make this into a movie. It's a TV series. Because he said, you can't chop this story down into 2 hours. He goes, you can't get it into a TV series. It's too big for a TV series, but you definitely can't make it into a movie. So he's struggling and fighting to get as much as he can, and he's going to piss people off because there will be things that will change, and it is what it is. The show. So we get to season 3. And 4. And 4. It's really interesting because the show's so big. It is still taking us aback a bit, where we're still grappling with just how huge this project is. When I started on the show, I had a team of 12. I have 70. Wow. It was, and I had my costume house was about the size of that rug right there. And there were like 4 sewing machines. And it is now the size of a football stadium, the costume department. I mean, it's just enormous. And there's, I don't even know how many sewing machines. There's 30 people sewing, and then there's, an entire department that just handles extras, and there's an entire department that just does breakdown. And now we have a craft department because we're making hats and they're making jewelry and they're doing, we just keep growing. I think we're as big as we're ever going to be. But, okay, am I going to spoil anything here today? No. I'm not spoiling anything about the costumes or the show, but am I spoiling anything with the books? Is there anybody who hasn't read them all? No. How far are you? You guys don't care. Oh, well, then you're fine. Okay, so I can go into 3. So we all know, now we're going to America. And what? Its headline, we're going to America. So we're going to America. So, that's a whole new deal. And it's a new world that we have to create. And I thought the last one was going to kill us. I just had to submit a decision on which episode I thought was best for season 2. And I looked at all of those episodes and went, I can't do it. I just can't do Paris again. I'm done. I gotta go. And I chose 213. And I think it's partly because also my head is in 213 at this point. I've now moved on. I'm past Paris. We're all past Paris, and we are back to our story and our heroes getting ready to get on that boat. And the way we shoot, because it's so enormous, that we'll be shooting here, but my head's down there. So halfway through season 1, I was in Paris. Right now, I'm fully in America. So what does America look like? And by the way, how are we shooting that in Scotland? Everybody's going to freeze to death. How's that going to work? Colonial Williamsburg, and what are those fabrics, and what is that going to mean for us? What are we up against as a department, and how do I translate all those clothes that I already own into America? And how do you pull that off? Because I'm not making another 5,000, 15,000, 30,000 costumes. I've got to deal with the Indians, Native Americans. I have to deal with them. I got to create a village. Every time I see Matt Roberts, I'm like, how many people are in that village? Ron, we finally got that hot tub built. We're in the hot tub, and I'm like, okay, but so really, the Indian village, is it like 500 people? Is it 50 people? And he's like, could you turn it off, please? So, various logistics come up about dealing with all of that, and how does our cast translate to that, and what are the similarities between the two places? So I started doing a lot of research, and the main thing I want to get you guys to think about is, I've talked about this a little bit, is how we look at clothing in a modern view versus how they would have looked at it in the 18th century. And I think I've touched on this in various interviews. And one of the things I always refer to is that I remember back in the 90s, there was this weird trend that happened with kids where I would come home from work and the neighborhood kids would be out running around in the street playing in their socks. Does anybody else know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That was so weird to me. It was just like, and it was like everywhere I went, kids were outside playing in their socks. And it was one of those weird kid things, where they start doing it and then they just kind of all pick it up and it becomes a thing they do and nobody knows where it started or why. And it made me think of my mother, who would have, if I'd ever done that, she'd have grabbed me by the back of my head and dragged me back in the house, and I'd have gotten the biggest lecture about, did I have any idea how hard people worked to buy me those socks? Probably would have been thinking, but they were $3. And that was disrespectful to not only the people, not only my father and my mother, who worked hard to to provide me with those clothes and to take care of those clothes, but also the people who made those clothes. And now we buy them, we buy a bag of socks at Target for $9, and so what, right? And so that I think that's why kids are running in the streets in them, because they're just so cheap that they can. So, but all of us are guilty. If I'm really really feeling low, I get on the internet and buy myself a couple of pairs of shoes. And they show up in the mail. I don't even have to go to the store. It's a wondrous thing, right? But it becomes a very unconscious thing. And, there was a great thing they did recently where they they went around the world and they had inhabitants in different countries take all of their belongings and put them out on the street in front of their house, and this one country has a little straw mat covered with 5 things. And then, the average American suburb has like a room this size, filled with, socks. And so it's an interesting thing that becomes a very unconscious way that we develop in the world. And as you study the historical costuming, which I had not really done that much of before, I did Carnival, which is a period piece, but Outlander's really been the biggest giant period piece I've done. And I love study. I love reading and I love study. Hence reading how many? 500-page books. 9. Shh. Oh, got it. She's still writing. And I was talking to Katrina the other day, and I said, okay, I'm going to do a spoiler here. Okay? I'm going to do a big spoiler. It's not a big spoiler. Somebody will yell at me for it, but I said, that cloak, the green cloak she wore with the plaid lining? Yeah. She hates that cloak. Kat hates that cloak, because Kat doesn't like anything up around her head. Because when she's acting, she says, I don't want to turn to somebody and I see fabric. I'm like, well, just tip it back a little bit. And so then she always wears the hood down, and then it chokes her because everything all our clothes weigh 50,000 pounds, and she's just like, it chokes me. I'm like, then put the hood up, and she's like, I don't like the hood up. So she's such a pain. Now you develop, it becomes like family. You're like, well, then don't do it like that. She's like, I hate it, you know. After a few years, it's like I'm dressing my daughter. You know, same arguments. I don't like that T-shirt. Anyway, I said, you know your cloak. Do you ever want to wear that again? She goes, I hate that cloak. I'm like, I know you hate the cloak. So are you ever going to want to wear it again? She said, I never want to see it again. I said, I'm giving it to Marcella. The light bulb comes on. And we had this conversation on Twitter at some point about what they do with their clothes after Paris. So where'd they go? That's a lot of clothes. A lot of money. So I started digging around with the idea of what happens to clothes and what did they do in the 18th century. Early on in Outlander, one of the members of my team collects 18th century clothes, and he brought in an actual 18th century coat. Beautiful on the outside, it belonged to a very, very wealthy man, but the beauty of the coat was not the outside, it was the inside. You open up the inside and it was a patchwork quilt. It had been patched and repatched and patched and patched over and over and over again. Probably for that person's entire life, they owned that costume, because clothes didn't change that much visually. If I put a costume out there from 1780 or 1720, no one would know the difference. I mean, there are historians who'd be able to pick out that cuff isn't exactly, those people. But the majority of people, myself included, wouldn't necessarily know the difference. And that is because garments were meant to last a lifetime. So one of the most fascinating things I may have read in my entire life that speaks to me on every possible cosmic level is that when a woman got married in the 18th century, she picked out a really beautiful dress. I mean, obviously, we're talking about people with a fair, middle class to upper middle class would pick out a great dress. They didn't pick out white dresses, because what was the practical use of a white dress? I mean, I don't even think it was a concept. I don't think anybody said, I'd go with white, but it just wasn't, it wouldn't make any sense to even do that. And the idea was that you were picking out your good dress that you were now going to wear the rest of your life. And so I started really digging into that. And there's documentation that follows the life of one costume or one gown for 60 years. So their approach to clothing is completely different. There's no online shopping then. And it was a completely different headset. And I believe that it really speaks to the heart of Outlander. It speaks to the heart of time travel, right? And Claire is our eyes. Claire is our 20th century, 21st century eyes going back in time. And we are always an observer, right? We're always thinking, God, they cleaned their teeth with a stick. You know what I mean? It's all of these incredible things. So, season 3 to me is where it all starts to really happen, because now we're no longer, on this wild ride. She's made her commitment. She's going back there. This is it. It's her and Jamie, and they're gonna build a life and a family. And we get to go to Fraser's Ridge, which I'm really excited about. But we now, I laugh and joke and say, now we're going to do Little House on the Prairie. Because there we are all going to be, right? The story gets stationary more or less, as much as Outlander ever gets stationary. Thank you, Diana. But we are now going to build, they're going to build their own world. Unlike living in other people's world, they're about to build their own. And one of the things that I really want to see is exactly that approach. People left clothing in their wills. So in a will, it would say, I bequeath to my sister, Janet, my green brocade gown. I bequeath to my cousin Mary, my brown wool suit. And clothes were so valuable. There was an enormous trade in secondhand clothing, going from the wealthiest down to the poorest. They didn't actually trade; they just got the cast-offs. But you could, if you were at the top levels of nobility, you could buy the clothing of the king. So the monarchy would sell off their clothes So, Saint Germain's now buying the King's cast-offs. I mean, it's utterly fascinating, their approach and how they dealt with clothing. So, labor meant nothing because people were indentured servants, basically. So the cost of clothing was never determined, or the value of clothing was never determined by the labor that went into it, which is extraordinary to us, because when you look at the embroidery and you look at the craftsmanship, you go, oh my God, I mean, that would cost $50 million if you tried to make that now. That didn't even count. It was the cost of the materials. But they were so costly that they were valued at an incredibly high level. So my goal is that we see that. So the spoiler I'm giving you is that you're going to see Marsali in a coat. We're going to figure that those clothes got put into a trunk, and Larry went, I'm taking that from her. Because, right, wouldn't she? She's yeah. And Jenny's a practical woman. What, she's going to let it rot? So, we're going to start seeing recycling. And eventually, my plan is, Claire's green plaid dress, that really beautiful one. I want that on Brianna's daughter one day. Right? Because eventually, you might. I got a beautiful quilt today. Thank you again. Thank you. And those of you who quilt know that, quilts were traditionally made with leftover fabric, right? But that wasn't just made because people wanted pretty quilts. That was made because you needed a quilt, because it was flipping cold. And, and there wasn't a heater, and the wind was blowing through the cracks of the house. And, that jacket just can't be worn as a jacket anymore. But there's enough fabric left to be a baby blanket, or enough fabric left to just be one square in a quilt. I mean, you think about the idea of a quilt. When there just isn't enough left to use it as a garment anymore, it now becomes made into a patchwork of garments that becomes a covering to keep you warm at night. It is something we have lost. And is it a bad thing that we lost it? I don't know, and that's a whole different kind of thing, but it is a different way of life, and it's a different approach to living that I think we have a rare opportunity. The only other show I can think of that could have ever played with this was Little House on the Prairie. Right? But people didn't do that in, what was that, the 70s or the 80s? What was that? 70s? In the 70s, you didn't really do that. And we can. So, I've given my team a few tasks of that recently, and I've said, okay, I want you to take this costume that was made for this character, and I want you to make it now work for that character. And they look at me and they go, are we out of money? It's like, no, we're not out of money. We're fine. Don't worry. Well, then why don't we, do we not know where that fabric came from? Because, we have a room now that is about the size of that rug. That's just bolts and bolts and bolts of fabric. And we can go get that wool again, and we can make a new whatever it is. And I'm like, no. I want you to stop being a 21st century tailor, and I want you to be an 18th century tailor. I want you to do to this garment what somebody would have done in the 18th century. I want you to cut it down and give it to another person. And my tailor said, so you want me to make it look bad? I said, yeah, I want you to make it look bad, because there's whole garment, that's what they did. And garments are completely remade and restructured. And here's my last fun fact. So cool. So what they did is like, I can't believe how this show just keeps finding new ways to keep me interested. Thank God. Heaven forbid I'd be bored. But they had a costume, item of clothing, a gown or suit, cleaned maybe 4 or 5 times in its lifetime. So if you got it, you reached your full growing height at, say 20, something like that. Now you're expected to have that suit or that gown until the day you die. So we're talking, what's life expectancy then? I don't know, Mandy. Come on, Mandy, you know everything. Maybe 60 years, right? So 60 years that gown. So over the course of 60 years, that's going to get cleaned 5 times, right? The way they cleaned it was they took it completely apart. Everything. Opened up all the seams, took it back down to its original pieces, and then laid it out on a table and then carefully cleaned it, because you had to do things carefully because you didn't want to ruin that garment because you needed it for your whole life, right? So, things were done in a way that was quite extraordinary. Gives you a different understanding of technology, too, and how fortunate we are that we don't clean our clothes 5 times in our life, and the technology that allows that. So, and there's a loss. The loss is that somebody's not painstakingly going over a garment lovingly and making sure that it is taken care of ever so perfectly. What's fascinating then is that if you wanted to change that garment to make it more modern, because there was fashion, that's when you did it, right? So you took it apart 5 times a year, you had it cleaned, and that's when you had it remade into a more modern, whatever the latest style would be. Then you'd make your adjustments. So very subtle, very, very subtle differences in costumes. So you're going to have to look really carefully. And my team's like, nobody's going to know you're doing that. And I'm like, do you know the Outlander fans? Do you know how they freeze frame everything and rewind it? And, come on. And so I'm gonna issue you now a little challenge. I want you guys to let me know when you catch something, because I'm gonna try to hide it from you, because they would have tried to hide, their makes. But you could have had a dinner party where somebody had a different lapel, or the entire the entire inside seam is a different fabric. This sort of patchwork together. And that's gonna be, and there will be recycling. There'll be costumes that you haven't seen for a while that are all of a sudden gonna appear. So it's gonna be up to you guys. So those will be your Easter eggs. Find the costume. So maybe Dougal's costumes could all. That's interesting. This whole world opens up where you're just suddenly going, oh my God, look at all the clothes we've made. What we do with so-and-so's clothes. So anyhow, that's something for you guys to keep an eye out for. And we'll just keep doing it. So in book 8, I hope to God in season 8 that we're still seeing, the baby wrapped up in a blanket that's made with Claire's dress, So, it'll be really cool. So that's pretty much it that I have to report, because everything else I can't tell you. Except for one thing I will add. It's going to be interesting, because this season is going to be a little bit dull. We in season 1 we all went to Scotland, and that was all incredibly exciting, and we were all so excited. And in season 2 we were in Paris, and that was just whoa! It was Paris. And season 3, if you think about season 3, it's not about fashion. It's not about a big glamorous world. It's not. It's a very, I keep saying to I'm doing interviews, and I'm like, this is about people on ships. This is a book of transition. This is a book about water. This is a book about people getting from the old world to the new. This is not a fashion show. To me, it is, and I think it's very exciting. And I think that you guys may find it exciting. I think that there may be a collective sigh in the world of the press that goes, "Wait a minute, what? Really? Nothing like Paris, huh?" No, nothing like Paris. But this is when we get to really dig in deep into the story. And that's what it's always been about. It's just really been about the story of these people and their incredible journey, and how we service that through their costumes. It's about family. It's about family. It really is. So, if I may, I'd love to open it up to you guys. I don't know how much time I have. I have no idea how long. I mean, you know me, I can talk forever. And since Deb isn't here, we can just go on until somebody shuts us down. So I'll just start in the front row and work my way back. So, Claire.
We're going to interrupt this amazing interview with Terry to give you a quick commercial break. We wanted to thank HelloFresh once again for being the sponsor of today's episode of Outlander Cast. You know, Blake and I had the privilege of trying out HelloFresh. It's a home delivery meal kit service, and it's made cooking fun. It was so easy. Okay, I suck at cooking. I don't know if I've said this enough on the podcast.
I really suck at cooking.
Yeah, you do.
Well, no. Actually, I'm pretty good at cooking. I just don't have the time for it.
You don't know how to cut a pear.
I know how to cut a pear.
I'm going to put up the video on OutlanderCast.com, and you can all see he doesn't even know how to cut a pear. Well, let me tell you, the cool thing about HelloFresh is that you can kind of say what level cook you are.
Yep,
you know,
like
so Blake and I were like, we are step 1.
Oh, yeah.
We are very beginner. And
if there was a step half, we would be a step half.
Yes. Well, I really think we did a great job with it because there were like step-by-step instructions with pictures, and the meals took about 30 minutes for me. So trust me, if you're actually good at what you're doing, you'll be much better at it.
Right.
It might even take a little bit shorter of time. But the ingredients were super fresh. Even like the spices. So I stink at buying spices. I'll buy spices for one dish and then I'll let them expire and just waste all that money. They will send you all the spices that you need aside from salt and pepper and oil, because everyone has that.
Sure.
You know, so I remember we had cornstarch was in one of the ingredients that we needed, and they sent the exact quantity. 1 tablespoon.
So you don't got to even worry about it. You
cornstarch.
just open up the thing and done.
Just popped it right in. I actually had our son help me put in all the ingredients because it was so easy. So the HelloFresh actually employs a full-time registered dietitian on staff who reviews each recipe to make sure that it's nutritionally balanced. So tell them about what we were able to eat.
Well, we had the steak and broccoli, and then we also had the what was it?
Parmesan crusted chicken.
Yes, and both were fantastic, like really, really good. And listen, I come home from work. It's like at 6:30 at night. The last thing I want to do is cook this meal or wait for the meal to be cooked. And when we had the HelloFresh, it just takes maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes at most to cook these meals. Like Mary said, it's all measured out beforehand. And I think the best part about it is it's fresh food immediately.
Yeah, it was like sent to us in an insulated box. And when I started to tell some of my friends, they were like, wow, you got meat and seafood, because we also have the shrimp dish that we're making tonight.
That's
so
right.
we're excited about that. And I said, yeah, but it was like fresh and delicious. The chicken, remember how we were like, God, it was so good. So it's really, really easy.
And it's literally impossible to screw up. You can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the cooks like us did not screw it up. And I never endorse products that I don't use myself and that I don't appreciate myself. You can always believe that, and trust me when I say this. I love HelloFresh. I really do. I think it's a great opportunity for you to get into it, especially if you're short on time. You got kids like us.
Or if you're just busy. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. I make 4 dishes. I make a chicken artichoke dish. I make tacos. I make spaghetti and meatballs. And I make spaghetti with butter. Okay? Those are the 4 things that I make.
cheese.
With Parmesan cheese. Those are the 4 things. We pretty much rotate those same 4 things every single week. And now I know how to make 3 more recipes.
Right.
And they're easy. And it's like, I now have these HelloFresh recipe cards. If I want to make the Parmesan crusted chicken, I can. I made my own roasted potatoes. I've never done that in my life. It was so easy. Thank you, HelloFresh. So honestly, guys, you know, I want to let you know that you get to head on over to HelloFresh.com and you get to use the promo code OutlanderCast. That's just one word, OutlanderCast. You can get $35 off your first week of deliveries. It's totally worth it. It's cheaper than going out to a nice dinner. You know, you're going to have all these fresh things. You'll have leftovers. I am currently drooling talking about it. So thank you once again, HelloFresh, for sponsoring and for also filling our bellies this week and for making us confident chefs.
You want to get back to Terry?
You bet.
All right, let's do it.
Could you at least tell us if Claire's wedding dress doesn't appear on a different character?
Well, Claire's wedding dress is currently on exhibit at Sony. So I don't know if I could mess with that one. I don't think I could. Front row. Anybody else in the front row? Yes, front row.
Was Sony expecting the results that they got from the fan base when they decided to make Outlander? Was it a surprise to you?
That's actually a really interesting question. The question was Sony surprised at the response from the fan base? Right? Is that a good retelling? It's a very superstitious business. It is amazing that all these people in Hollywood, they are so superstitious. I'm not a superstitious person, so it's always really remarkable to me. Like, you can never say, oh, I think we're going to get picked up for next season. Ron will go, shh. Shh. It's like I tried to make a poultice for you the other day. You weren't having any part of it, and you said there was modern medicine was the way to go. Very, very superstitious. You can never say that anything's ever going to be a hit. You can never say that anything's going to be successful. You can never, ever, 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 ever talk about upcoming seasons if they haven't been approved. So that has been like hell for me, because I'm in season 1 going, oh my God, Paris is coming. Oh my God, Paris is coming. Don't you understand? Paris is coming. And people are like, shh, we don't even know if we're going to get picked up. And I'm like, it's still coming. So, I'm not sure how Sony felt about it. My sense is that this show's a really remarkable beast. I think there's a few people who knew how powerful it was. I think Diana obviously knows. I think Ron knew immediately. I think that Meryl and me, Matt. I think there's a core group of us who understood what this was, and because as I sort of started out with this, Ron, because he's been a fan, right? So when he found out, I had forgotten this until just this very moment. After I was talking to him about the books, I said, "Do you know how many copies this book has sold?" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, look." And he was like, "Seriously?" And I said, "It's all women." And I saw that spark for him, that he then got it because he's a fan. He was able to understand this is a book that's getting passed. And he watched me pass it around to people with tattoos and shaved heads and people that are not supposed to be Outlander fans, are now like, oh my God. So do the suits sitting up in a studio somewhere? I don't think they did. I can't say that for sure, because I know that some of them absolutely loved it. I can tell you another thing, that Stars read all the books. And I think Ron has said that in interviews, and that's remarkable, that Chris Albrecht, who's the head of Stars, read all the Outlander books. That never happens. So, there's usually a tremendous disconnect, from the people who actually, the people up there at that level who greenlight projects, and then the people actually, then all of you, and the people who make the project. And this has been something that I've been in this business 30 years, and I've never seen a project that got as much support from top to bottom as this did. And I think the fact that we got picked up for 2 seasons and at once is an extraordinary thing, and tells you just how much they believe in this. So when people get out there, I swear, when people go out there and talk all about how, the show's about to go down and everything's doom and gloom, and it's all bullshit. There is tremendous love and tremendous support for this show from top to bottom, and everybody wants it to succeed, and it really keeps us all going. Okay, second row. Oh no, first row still. Go ahead.
Do you have a favorite source? Or do you just like it all?
I like it all. I don't Google because the problem with the latest problem I've had with Googling things is that I type in 18th century whatever it is I'm looking for, and pictures of Outlander come up. And I'm like, that's not real. 18th century frock coat. Oh, there's Jamie. And you just go, that's out of my imagination. That is not real. I want to write letters. I designed that. I live now. That's not. But actually, I would say my first source always is Pinterest. How many of you were around for my Pinterest rant? When I was writing letters and tweeting to Pinterest, going, why do you change your format? it becomes an incredible, because everything's tapped in there. So, I'll get hooked into the Metropolitan and the V&A and, every museum in the world, there will be, and every painting. I mean, I don't know how many, I have probably at least 40 secret Pinterest pages because I don't need all of you guys digging around in there like I know you would, because the minute I said that I was on Pinterest, I got so many follows. I was like, oh, there they are. They don't know about the secret boards. But yeah, so I can type in pretty much anything and have access to do anything. But then I'll go to the museum sites and there's a lot. Thank God for technology. Okay, you go ahead.
I read that you have principles now, body correct. Mannequins.
Did that get out? Yeah, I probably told somebody that.
Do you have to do as much straightening now, or make more?
Oh, well, see, now this is one of those things, I am the queen of the really brilliant new idea. And I'm always saying to everybody, think outside the box. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was that they'd heard about the new mannequins we had made, which were done with, what's the technology called? It's like 3D printing. I mean, basically, the actors they go down and they get this. It's measurement specific, but what they do is they go down. They have the sensors put all over their bodies, and then it's kind of like a motion capture. But then there are companies now that make, and they use it for a lot of special effects stuff. But they just started making mannequins. So, the hardest thing we have on the show is getting fittings, because our actors are always working. Katrina is always working. So it's like, oh God, I need it for a fitting. Please. And so again, I'm always the one who's going, think outside the box, do something different. There's got to be a new solution, because there's no words I hate more in the world than this is the way it's always been done. Because if that were the case, we'd all be, we'd all be with stones and sticks. And I heard about this with the mannequins, and I went, well, what the hell? Let's go get mannequins made, because then I don't have to dig for fittings anymore. I can just have one fitting at the end, and we'll have an absolutely anatomically perfect mannequin. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So we convinced Kat and Sophie to do this, and they went down to London, and they had, the things put all over them. Sam wouldn't go because he said his body at that point wasn't going to be like it was in the show. I didn't tell you that. That's me getting him back for telling everybody in the press that our department chewed up nuts and berries to dye the tartan. He put that one out for a while. I'm like, shut up. No, we did not. Those are chemical dyes. Anyway, so we had these mannequins made except for Sam's, and I said, well, then fine, you have to come to all the fittings, and I intend to torture you for this. So, we got these mannequins. Problem is that they're hard. You can't fit on them. You can't, you're going, and you're trying to get it, and we're like, oh man, they're not cheap. They're not cheap. And so that was one of my bright ideas that really went really wrong. But then I took it to Gary. Gary has this amazing sculptor who does all this plaster work, and he said, oh, just give it to me, and I'll just make it out of a softer material for you. So that's in the works, and that's really good. But then the other problem we had was that one of Katrina's head fell off, and somebody was working, and all of a sudden the head fell off and rolled down the way, and then the foot fell off, and the limbs are taped on with duct tape, and so there's something in the mix that we have to fix, and they have to figure out how to get us mannequins that don't fall apart. And then Kat came in one day, and now at this point we've got like 4 of them, and she goes, and I have robes on them all, right? Because it's really weird. They're gray. They're the color of this carpet. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's sort of this horrible cement gray. So these like 5 gray cement Katrinas standing there naked in our room. And I was, somebody get a robe on that. It's just, we can't have it. And Kat comes in and she goes, that is so creepy. And I'm like, at least you're covered. You know. So yeah, but it's still a work in progress. Who else in that row? Anybody? Okay. Oh, okay. See, well, they're going to get to the back now, you guys. I'm going to have to go around it. Okay, you guys too, and then I'm going back. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Season 2 has been new.
You know, Stan, if you can you? Oh, yeah, okay, just stay. Sorry.
Which one was your favorite one?
Which was my favorite costume from season 2?
Like, was it the red dress?
I don't like the red dress. I like the red shoes. I don't like the red dress, you know, for a myriad of reasons. I don't like the red dress because I knew I was going to fail. I mean, you know, in the sense that 20 million people were waiting for the red dress. And I knew if I was lucky, I'd get 10% to like it. You know, it was like, I knew it was going to get ripped apart and shredded. And I knew that because it was put out there before the show aired, that there would be months of time for people to analyze every stitch and tell me what an idiot I was. That wasn't fun. And who wants to do red? I mean, I love red. It's one of my favorite colors, and I think it looks great on people, but it's not something that was very common. And probably wouldn't have been done by Diana. I got to write whatever she wanted, right? So she wrote a red dress, and that was back in the days when I was making costumes according to the book to some degree, which I am no longer doing. May I spoil that? It's too hard. It's just too hard. I can't be in everybody's head, and it's better that I'm not in anybody's head except my own. You know what's funny? I learned that from Ron. I was talking to Ron the other day about something to do with the show and the expectations, and he just said, and I said, maybe you should just kind of lower your expectations, because I'll never do that. I'm never lowering my expectations. You know, I will always write the best I can. I will always do the best I can, and I don't care what anybody else says. I will write the best story that I know how to write. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, that's sort of the way I have to approach the costumes. I just have to make the best costume I possibly can. And when I switch over and try to make what other people might be anticipating or thinking, or even what Diana was thinking, it just doesn't, I lose me, and I lose whatever my natural flow is. And I think the red dress was great, but it's not me. There's costumes that are. It's not the nipple dress either. I guess that's what that means, right? She's over there doing this. I'm like, I love the brown garden dress. You know what? If somebody were like, you know, putting, you know, bamboo shoots in my feet or something like that, I would have to say Dior. And the Dior, because, you know, again, I'm not a fashion designer. I'm a costume designer. My job is to tell stories and not to make pretty dresses. It's funny how many people say to me, so do you just make all the clothes and then, you know, and then you figure out after the story comes out where they go? And it's like, no. They're actually 4 people, 4 characters to fit into the story. So Dior tells a story of a person, and it's a very, very important story. To me, that costume defines Claire and who she is and what, and again, isn't the heart of the books for all of us as readers, think, what would I do if that were me? I mean, you know, I grew a big old herb garden after I read Outlander, and I was slapping poultices on the family. They were like, don't get sick at our house, she'll put a poultice on you. Oh, penicillin. Ron's like, just read the book. We don't have to live it. But that is our task, I think, as readers, and our task as people who make the show is to allow you to imagine what it would be like and how you would do it if you were there. And so that would be the Dior then, I guess. But that's a hard, because that hand-painted dress. And Louis' robe and her blue robe with the gold paint on it made my heart sing. Okay. Jamie's coat, which one?
The leather one.
It's time for me to stop. Gotta go. Bye.
No. He's got a mic.
Oh, great. Oh, aren't you fantastic? Wait, that is down at this end.
Down here?
Yeah, and then you guys pass it back and across down the rows. We'll go until we can't go anymore. Maybe my last convention. Okay.
Hello?
We hear you.
Okay. I want to ask this because I know my mom would want to know. You've created such iconic pieces with Claire's dresses. I know you said Pinterest was some of your inspiration, but like the wedding dress and, the painted dress, where did you get that kind of inspiration to create it? I mean, it's beautiful.
Well, let me say this. What Pinterest does is what research does is it gives you the foundation, right? It tells you what the silhouette is. It tells you how the cut would be, or, a lot of times I'll get an idea in my head and then I go research to see if that's possible. Did that exist? The knit bits. Okay. So huge controversy, right? The knit pieces. Oh my God, the pain of the knit pieces. Because what we did was not authentic. Because at the last minute I looked at, I don't know, I think I had one of my team wearing one of Claire's costumes, and went, you know what, she would die in that castle. I live in a house, and they'd die if they were all exposed like that. And I had some knit thing, and I picked it up and threw it around and went, see, now that looks right. It looked right, but it looked right to my modern eye. So your knit wrap right there looked right to me. But then I went, did they have them? So then I had to go do forensics, as I call them, and figure out, did they have knitting? They did. They had knitting. We don't know what they knit exactly. There's a few knit hats. There's a couple of knit gloves. Socks, but very few. Really very few, because they would rot. Socks would rot in wet shoes. So there's a few pieces pulled out of bogs, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I had proof. And once I had that proof, I could say, done, we're good. Now, then there was the issue of the size of the knitting needles, because our knits look pretty modern because they're very big. And then I wrote a very sarcastic short story on my blog. Some of you may remember about Mrs. Fitz getting bored with really tight knits and going down to the castle woodworker and having some really big knitting needles made. And she knit for everybody. She made knit things for everybody, and everybody was so excited about them because they didn't look like any other knits anybody had ever seen in the 18th century. And then people got really pissed at me and said, you can't, prove a positive with a negative, which is, my thing was, how do we know? Do we have a surviving instance of every single garment everybody ever wore? No, we do not. So I get to say that maybe somewhere in some croft somewhere, somebody was knitting some big needles. So that's how I used research, basically. And then from there, it's about my creativity. So then once I see that they had these kind of fabrics, and I know that these fabrics don't exist, then it's my job to figure out, how do we make it? So then you get those painted fabrics. There's me going, well, why don't we just paint stuff? Or why don't we just embroider things? Or why don't we think outside the box? So that's, then you see layers, you see history, and then you see me, essentially. Go ahead.
When you were in junior high school, college, were you constantly redesigning your own clothes or making over things that you bought?
I don't know how to sew.
Just even designing how you would change them?
There's my mother saved every drawing I ever did. Swear to God, it was unbelievable. After she died and I went into her house, there were like trunks of a piece of paper with 4 lines on it. You know, it's just like, wow, Mom. It's really flattering, but there's 4 lines. And I can remember, you remember the Disney Cinderella book, the original one, like from, I guess it'd be from the 50s or early 60s.
Blonde hair.
Yeah. At the end, she's wearing that. Her hands are like this, and she's got the 2 dogs on either side of her. I learned to draw costumes from that book, and I would draw them over and over and over and over and over and over. I learned to draw necks from that book because I would draw and draw and draw and go, why don't my drawings look like those? Oh, those 2 lines make a neck. Okay. And I didn't know that I was going to be a costume designer. I had no intention of being a costume designer, even though I drew clothes my whole life. My mom, when I was sick, would let me make my own paper dolls, and I would design lots and lots of clothes with paper dolls. And then when I got into high school, I became the costume designer for our school theater, which was a very well-known, very well-respected. We did Shakespeare. I remember, we did. My first costume I ever made was for Taming the Shrew. And I did a few costumes, and they thought I was pretty good at it, and they let me design all the productions. And then I was going to my plan was to go to NYU and study costume design, and then at the last minute, I went, I can't be around theater people for the rest of my life. Because high school theater people are really annoying. You know, it's funny because my kid goes to an art school, and he always talks about the theater people, and they always, you know, it's the White Christmas thing, it's the theater, you know, Danny Kaye when he's dancing, you know, and I just was like, I can't be around theater people. Love theater people, if there's anybody here. Don't want to offend anybody, but, and then went to art school and was going to be a fine artist, and then, you know, messed around with that for 20 years or something, and, not 20, it's way too long, it's 10. And then ended up being a costume designer anyway. So it's like you can run, but you can't hide, I guess. Okay. You guys can ask me about anything. You want to know about the kids, Ron, the dog.
Would you ever consider mass marketing the red shoes?
Oh, I would love to mass market the red shoes. You know, I have no interest whatsoever in doing fashion. And doing fashionable versions, although I did tweet out some ideas I had. But the shoes, I would love to do the shoes. But it's, you know, for the millionth time, I don't get to make those choices. I have been yelling up and down the halls at Sony going, shoes, don't you understand? Get somebody to make shoes. And they're like, what? What? Because they don't, you know, they don't really see them, and they're mad and they don't know. But I mean, a line of an Outlander. Somebody tweeted me the other day a pair of red Gucci velvet shoes that are spot on ours. The red shoes, they are just exactly the same. And there's been a lot of articles recently about the Outlander effect and how influence we've had over the runways, which fans kept telling me, I think it's happening. And I'm like, it's not. No, it's not. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, it really is. So, you know, I have hopes that they'll maybe do something. Maybe.
After the productions are done, what happens to the costumes? Do they go in a big warehouse? Are there some that you're going to keep for a longer time?
Well, you see my evil little plan that I talked about here?
Yes.
Nothing. I don't want them to leave my hands. I want to hold on to them. I don't want them. God knows I don't want to take them home with me. But until I have a really clear idea of what the big picture plan is for all of these costumes, I will be using them again. And that is the story I'm telling everybody. Because we will reuse things, and we never know. And the other thing I always say is you never know in a story about time travel that's filled with flashbacks when all of a sudden Pollard's going to show up. You know what I mean? Who knows? People keep saying, you live with the writer, you know everything. I'm like, oh, he doesn't talk, remember? He doesn't talk. Not even to me.
Hi, Terry. I'm not going to cry.
As a single now mother of 4, my youngest one is a theater kid, going to be a biomedical engineer.
Oh, God.
I just really want to thank you for being part of this story. My Jamie decided he didn't want to be my Jamie anymore. I was too much Claire, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, that happens. That happens.
And this story picked up right when he decided to part ways with the four of the kids and myself. And it's not just the story, it's not just how hot Sam is.
He's not in real life at all. Kind of slumpy and dull.
I would say so. But you know what? It's also the authentic part you bring to the story with your costumes. And I just want to thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you. My costume tonight.
I will. You know, I just want to say that, you know, as everybody said, it's a story about survival, right? It's about surviving hard times. And, you know, when Claire lost, you know, I said this with our press thing earlier, what's so important to me about this season, about where I think this just tells us the story of Claire so incredibly, and I've said this a million, I said it to Kat the other day in a fitting, we were talking about it. You know, she loses the love of her life, right? She loses him. He's gone. She's never going to see him ever again. This woman does not give up. She doesn't go climb into the bed. She doesn't quit. She becomes a surgeon in 1960, whatever, 6 or 5 or whatever it is that she actually becomes a surgeon. She does not give up. That is the story of Claire. And that is the story of Jamie too, and why I did a piece on my blog ages ago about heroes, and that he's not just the hero; they're both heroes, and it's a story of people who are heroic in their own lives and who don't give up, who just keep giving and keep getting, and that's what we have to do. Yeah, and it's self-love. That's right, and it's belief in yourself, and belief that you owe that other person. You know, when I started out here and I was talking about. And I have mentioned it a few times here, is that Ron tells me things about what he does, and I go, oh, yeah, okay. He's such a starry-eyed optimist. I guess I should get a little bit of that, you know. And it's about living up to making the world better, and that world can mean your family, it can mean your neighborhood, it can mean your country, it can mean the whole world. It's just doing whatever you have to do to not give up. We can't give up. And that's the story of that one, I think.
Terry, I want to congratulate you on winning the Costume Society of America Costume Design Award.
That was a good one.
And we're hoping that you're going to be able to go to the convention.
Oh, God, you've tracked me down here.
Yes.
I know the emails.
And the theme for the convention in 2017 is how costume design uses technology. I wonder if you comment on how costume design has changed using technology. I know you talked about the mannequins, but in other ways since you first started in the business.
And I would love to come. It's hard for me to know my schedule yet, but we will keep talking. Yeah, I would absolutely love to. Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I've had a 30-year career, and the things I can do now, I just never could do. I'm really itching to get my hands on a 3D printer. I'm wondering if I can make buttons on it. Because we still haven't cracked that. I wonder how many buttons we need at this point, how many views at this point. I mean, we must be getting up, 500,000 or something. I mean, it's insane how many buttons. But I do get tremendous pleasure, just as an aside, of sitting in a meeting and they're talking about upcoming sex scenes. And I love, there will be some, and I love sitting there going, all right, so, his costume has 52 buttons on it, right? And there's always that moment with that new director where they kind of turn green and go, what? Yeah, he's got about 25 on his coat, and he's got 8 on his breeches, and then his belt, his boots, well, those are like 15 buckles right there. That's before you get to the corset. Huh? Just leave the boots on. Yeah, but you gotta get the... Well, there's always that, except that he's got to get the breeches. Anyway, technical. Anyhow, so buttons remain our painful horror. So I'm wondering what a 3D printer will do for us, because what the embroidery machines did was remarkable. You know, I was watching Dangerous Liaison again the other day, which was the pinnacle. That and The Last Emperor, or the two movies that were always like the consummate costume films for me. And it's interesting to watch it, and the costumes they're staggeringly beautiful, but we weren't able to do the kind of embroidery we were able to do. And that's not for lack of talent, that's not for lack of vision, not for lack of anything. That is just technology. We were able to take commercial embroidery machines and embroider your t-shirts and your hats and all that, and go, okay, we program an 18th century embroidery, and able to provide the kind of costumes that there's just no way that you could do. So, that kind of stuff is really quite remarkable. And we are an odd mix of technology on things like that, and maybe something like 3D printing and those sorts of, we're playing with lots of jewelry making techniques, because you can't buy 18th century jewelry, so now we're figuring out how to make it ourselves. And then really, really old school stuff. I mean, really, really ancient, it's amazing that, go in there and they're stitching those seams, by hand. So it's a fascinating way to see things going forward. You try to make buttons? Yeah, you gotta make the shank, and that is the problem. We did make some for Column's coat, and we had problems. We had problems with them breaking in half. But they make some amazing things with 3D technology. Never say never. By next year, who knows? I saw 3D shoes the other day. How do they hold up? I hope spring's eternal. Ron always says I'm such a horrible pessimist, except when it comes to this kind of thing. And I'm like, no, I know it's going to work somehow. Well, we'll keep looking. I want one of those prints anyway. Who's got the mic? Outlander Cass.
Yes, hi. So you've talked many times about how wonderful it is that you and Ron's relationship is, and I love that you were able to work together. But I wonder how that... My husband drives me crazy, and I work with him like 2 hours a week, but I love him dearly. But not only are you able to work together, but you're able to balance your family life with your kids and with your job, with both of you working on this incredibly time-consuming job. How do you do that?
And cats.
That's all of your animals. How do you balance your family life, since both of you are in the Outlander world?
I have to give him a tremendous amount of credit for that. Don't ever tell him I said that. He's so bloody calm. I was just thinking when you said that 2 days ago, it's so funny, I don't even remember what happened, but I'd gotten to New York, and then so I'm jet lagged and tired and cranky, but I'm in New York and I'm going to have fun, and I spent 6 hours on phone and text and email putting out fires that were going on back in Scotland. It's just the nature of the business. It's not because the show is falling apart or because people aren't good at their job. It's just that it's just the way the business works. And I hit him full blast. Goddamn show, and I should be able to go away. And do you know what happened there? And then I went through the list and I just ranted. I must have been 45 minutes of me just going. And at one point, I went, "Are you listening to me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm listening to you." And I go back to that story I started out with on that camping trip, right? Yeah. He always listens. He just doesn't always respond. And he's an infinitely patient, kind, supportive, amazing man. Then he'll snap, and then we'll have some giant thing, and chairs and pottery gets thrown, and that's okay. I think that in our relationship there's a tremendous amount of forgiveness, and a tremendous security and knowledge. And it's the first time in my entire life I can say I've ever had this. The knowledge that I can never really ultimately do anything wrong. There's nothing I can do to drive him away. And the same for him. I may want to kill him sometimes, but my God, I love that man. And he will say the same thing. And so there's this phenomenal freedom in being able to be yourself, vent, get sick for 6 weeks. He is a man that if I'm here and there's something I need over there and I start to get out of bed to go get it, he'll jump out of the bed and his side is over here. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm going to get that for you. And I'm like, it's 3 feet from me. And he goes, but it's my job to take care of you. I mean, it really is like, wow. But we try to outdo each other all the time with how much we do for each other and how much we take care of each other. And when you've got that as your foundation, then the other stuff is just stuff, right? Then there's my kids. My son is about to set up a table in the cafeteria of his school with, he goes to an art school, right? So they've got, dance, sculpture, music, all the programs. And he's going to print out a set of flyers for each one of the disciplines with a project from Donors Choose, so that the kids in the ballet class can sign up to help a classroom somewhere that has, is struggling to get their dance program off the ground, or another classroom that's struggling to have instruments. I mean, and that's my 17-year-old son. I'm so proud of him. Because he doesn't curl up under the furniture and he doesn't check out in video games. He rolls his sleeves up and gets in there. And my amazing, crazy teenage daughter, who is a teenage daughter. But my story about her is that when she came home this last time, and I was like, I feel like we don't do enough, that you're here in Scotland and you haven't really seen much and you haven't done things. And she goes, who lives in Scotland on their summer vacation every year? I mean, I was so terrified that when I went off and left my family, my kids were 12 and 14, and I said, I'm going to leave home and move to another continent. And I was terrified. She's going to end up saying, well, she's going to end up cutting herself. She's going to become a bulimic. He's going to be doing crystal meth. And he's like, they are not. I'm like, they will. I'm going to be gone. You can't take care of them. You don't even know what day it is sometimes. He does, sort of. And instead what I discovered is that the foundation was there and they just absolutely stepped up and are flying. And then they decided to go off to boarding school and move out of the house, each one of them at 14 years old. I mean, my kids left home at 14 and they are extraordinary. So I think it's belief and confidence and teaching them to be competent. I think that competence is a word we don't use enough with raising children. Is that you gotta let them go, and you gotta let them learn to make mistakes and do things. And I think that requires a lot of forgiveness and acceptance. And if there's one thing we have in our family, it is that. Except for Ron and the animals, he has zero acceptance for them. It's good, but I miss them. I can't wait to get home. It's hard. Yeah.
Both Ron and Diana have had appearances on the show. We would love to see you. Do you have any?
Ain't gonna happen. I don't like having my picture taken. But I don't, it's very uncomfortable for me. I'm not at ease. This kind of environment is great for me. I can talk, but I can't act. So I acted once in my life, and I forgot. I went for the only time in my life speechless. Couldn't just thought I was going to die, and no, that's not going to happen. Ron, on the other hand, is an actor. He really is. Actors are very shy. You guys all hear that. A lot of them are very, very shy. I'm not at all shy. It's why I'm not an actor. And So no, don't look for that. Not gonna. My kids have been in it. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say I find it incredibly brilliant, the details that are into so many of the costumes. Of course, one of my favorites is Human Rose, just absolutely astounding. And I still remember seeing the embroidered buttons on your blog or Twitter or whatever, something. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they embroidered the buttons. This is unbelievable. But then you also talk about painting the tartan. It's like, oh, we could get away with painting the tartan on some particular thing. So I was just curious, is there any other thing that y'all kind of like painted the tartan on that you're like, I don't want to do this, but we got to do it just to get it out, if you would?
You mean the things that we had to do out of necessity?
Right.
Not really. I mean, we've been really lucky on the show. We have tremendous support from above us. We have tremendous support from everyone we work with. Who it's very difficult as women. Where are you going? Okay. Make sure. We're women. We're a women's department in a man's world, and that's not always easy. It's one of the reasons I got out of the business. As I've told many people many times, you get really tired of being an afterthought. It's not just at home that women are afterthoughts. It's, as we all know, in the workplace, it's like, oh yeah, you. And I've spent 30 years like frigging banging my fists and feet and everything else on every surface I possibly can. Going, excuse me, those people are not going to be naked, and if you don't talk to me, they will be. So, but I'm really lucky to have an incredibly amazing feminist husband, and Matt Roberts is an extraordinary man in those respects too, and Merle and me, and we're all very fierce on these things. So it has meant, to answer your question in a very convoluted way, that it's allowed us a luxury, which shouldn't be a luxury, in terms of being taken into consideration at the beginning of the process and having the time and the resources that we need to do the job. And that is very, very, very rare in this business. And so thus it has meant that it has put us in very many situations where we're like, oh my God, we've got to paint tartan because we can't get any. So a lot of that stuff that we do, things like painting tartan, is really just us playing to see with what can we do and how far can we go, because you never know when we might need it.
I have read that you love to cook.
I do.
And I have read that on occasion you cook for and entertain the staff and actors at your home in Scotland.
I do.
What are your 3 favorite things to cook, and do you have any memorable or funny stories about having them for dinner?
Well, that doesn't have to do with food. I've had some memorable sleepovers at my house. I do love to entertain. Actually, as soon as I get home, I'm going to be, it will all begin. And friends and family will convene, and there'll be lots and lots and lots of cooking. I really just discovered the art of the crock. It's kind of fabulous. And chocolate covered graham crackers, which that production starts up right away. I am a big fan of cooking over fire and cooking in the fire. So I'll get a lot of big cast iron things, and have things bubbling away for hours in the coals and moving the coals around underneath. Hearth cooking, it's called. And usually when I've got a table full of people, I know that I don't really have to get fussy. It's the company. It's the whole experience. So I will usually do a giant pork roast that's cooked for hours and hours and hours, and every culture has pork roasts. Thank you. And a giant roast chicken. And that's sort of become a tradition that when cast and crew are over, that there's 2 giant, huge piles of meat, and then, salads and things, and some sticky toffee pudding for dessert. And then the fun stories I really can't repeat. But when, it's really interesting because we have what is in the UK a country house, which isn't really an American thing. I mean, we have cabins, but the old country house. We're going to the country house, and we live in a country house. And so when we invite people over, you don't drive home afterwards. It's too far. It's I live half an hour from the studio and an hour from Glasgow. So we are way to hell and gone where there are no streetlights, and so people have to spend the night. And the good thing about that is that you don't have to worry about drinking and driving. And that's where the stories start and end. But we've had I have a pool table upstairs, and we've had some riotous, just like drunken pool games or snooker or whatever the hell they call it over there, and lots of people yelling at each other and falling on the floor and laughing, and it's great fun. It really is. It's great fun, and we need to let off steam, so it's a good thing.
Hi, Terry.
Hey.
This might be a little off topic, but is there any chance of Outlander filming in North Carolina? You can't say.
No, I don't know. It's funny. People think I know, like, absolutely everything. And it's really funny. Meryl said to me the other day, I was like, can I get the next script? Talk about it on the next script. And she goes, you sleep next to the guy and ask him. I'm like, he doesn't talk. I don't know. I don't know what the plans are going to be. I know I can say it's, all things are considered. And it's a complicated, the other thing is, I kind of don't want to know, because then you start getting into tax credits and right to work states and all this stuff. And it's, it's like, that's the point where I go, I'm just the costume designer, and everybody starts laughing. But no, I don't know. I don't know what's going to do.
Hi, Terry.
Hey.
So, just listening to you, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. You seem like such a beautiful person inside and out.
Thank you.
And to hear you, I'm a mom of 2 young girls, and to hear you talk about your family and your husband, and just in general, just be so grounded with this type of lifestyle that you lead with Outlander. I mean, it's someone's dream come true. So how do you stay so grounded? I mean, it's, again, so delightful. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for believing that lie. I said to Ron this morning, or last night, I said, who would have ever thought that I would be calling you from a hotel in Iowa at a fan convention for Outlander, and you are just been, you've just been in Disneyland, and it's just like, sometimes it gets so surreal. It really, really does. It's funny, I flew in here from, I guess, Detroit. I don't know what city I'm in anymore. And there was a guy next to me. Sweet guy. God, he was sweet, but he was one of those talkers, You get on the plane, and you're like, oh no, he's going to talk to me. And he's going to talk to me for the whole flight. And it's not like it's a giant jet. It's like one of those tiny planes. And there's no going anywhere, right? And he's an engineer for John Deere. And he proceeded to tell me about how every part is made. But then I just kind of went, oh, you know what? What a great experience. Just shut up and listen to this man and hear what he has to say. And he turned out to be absolutely lovely. He was absolutely the sweetest guy in the world, and I learned a lot from him, and he was really quite fascinating. And one of the things, and he asked me what I did, and I was like, can I tell him I do something else? Because I knew it was going to be Martian. And he was like, oh, and then what? So I told him kind of what I did, and then we started comparing, what it is to make, John Deere tractor parts and costumes. At which point we found common ground, which is that both of us decided that you think outside the box, because that's the way you have to come up with systems. You have to. He didn't make my buttons. Swear to God, he makes flywheels. He was lovely. He was absolutely lovely. It was really sweet. But he said to me, so how do you do it? And I said, he goes, and I said, well, I make a home wherever I am. And that's the key. I think that's the key to everything, is that you have to create a home. So when Ron gets off the airplane, or my kids get off the airplane, they land in their Scotland home. And the dog's there. And, well, there's not cats in the Scotland one. So just the dog's there. But that's home to them, because we always have a lot of animals, right? So in Scotland, this is our Scotland pet, Scotland home pet. And, there's meat sauce in whatever home you're in. And everybody's got a room, and their room is there, and Ron has clothes in the closet, so all he has to do is carry on. So his Scotland clothes are there, and the kids have stuff there. And then you go back to California, and everybody's got their things there, and it's about home. It's about creating home. And that's the thing that, in our world, we're like, the pebbles you throw across the water, right? Skipping pebbles. That's kind of what our life is like. I fight against it a lot. I'm always like, I want normal. And Ron goes, what's that? What would that even look like? And I rail about leaving the show a lot. And I have tremendous sadness about my kids. And that I feel like I'm missing something, but then again, I'm not, because my kids went away to school because that's what they wanted to do. And my daughter's butchering pigs, and my son is doing film editing. So, I don't know. It's very odd. It's a very odd life, but somehow we manage, and I think it's love and family and support, and that's the only things any of us can ever count on.
Okay, Blake.
Yep.
Terry's interview done. Amazing.
She is great.
She so humble and amazing, and she stayed there for, honest to God, what was it, like an hour and a half? Just talking with these people who love her and adore her work. And it was just natural and lovely. So honestly, thank you so much, Terry, for taking the time to come to Through the Stones. And thank you so much to our friends at Through the Stones for letting me record the audio for this. For those of you who couldn't go, honest to God, make sure you get tickets for the 2018 Through the Stones conference.
You're going to want to do it.
Seriously.
Just for that talk alone.
Yeah.
Right? That is worth the money to get out there and experience Through the Stones. I wish someone I had known would let me go too.
I told you can come. We'll just get a babysitter. It'll be fine.
Okay.
The kids will be older. So, we wanted to remind you all that there are more interviews coming. You can get instant access to those interviews with Grant O'Rourke and 2 more interviews with both he and Terry. If you become a $10 or higher level patron at patreon.com/OutlanderCast, or you can just head on over to OutlanderCast.com and click on our support tab.
Yep.
If you want to become a part of an amazing online community that we have, just head on over to Facebook and find the Outlander Cast Clan Gathering. So it's like its own little Facebook group. It's like Through the Stones, but on Facebook. So you can just chat with people who love the show, who love the books. We also have a book club, Outlander Cast Clan Book Club, if you want to talk more about what happens in Voyager and beyond. So great. And use the hashtag Gonlander to check out the upcoming episodes that we have, the past episodes, because we're going to miss a lot of these Gonlanders.
I just wish I could be part of the dinners that Terry talked about. Mm-hmm. And, it's like to be there and check that out. And I think that'd be so much fun.
Learn more about these dinners in one of these upcoming interviews, by the way. She and Grant have a fun little chat about it, of course.
Right. Well, my love, you ready to close up the show?
You bet.
All right, let's do it.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Outlander Cast. Blake and I have missed you guys. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
Nope. Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen,
We're just going to continue to nerd out with you, especially with our next interview, which will be Gonlander Part 4, which will be Grant's keynote speech from Through the Stones, which I'm very excited for you to hear this. He's one funny dude, like I said, and I think he shows a lot of great personality, gives you a lot of good information that you probably wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. Personal stories about what it's like to be Rupert, in the Rupert and Angus coupling on the show. I think that was, I think he's a lot of fun. I think you're going to enjoy that one.
Big shout out to Nikki on our Outlander Cast blog team. She is actually a very high patron, and I just want to give her props. Nikki, thank you so much, and thank you to all of the patrons who've made this episode possible.
That's right.
Guys, love you. We're going to have a lot more chat going on the Outlander Cast blog. Got a lot of great articles. Keep there for all of the latest news. And it's good. It's good to be back.
Just, hey, you know what? And also go to the Outlander Cast blog. I'm going to pitch my own stuff here because I'm that selfish. Go to Outlander Cast blog and check out my article about Blackjack Randall, why he is the perfect antagonist for Outlander, but why he has to go after season 3.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing.
Well, listen, just based on the television show, he's the perfect antagonist for Claire. Not Jamie, but Claire.
Find out why.
And why he has to go after season 3. All written by yours truly, an award-winning, Emmy Award-winning, Oscar-nominated podcast host like myself.
Anyway.
All right. Much love, guys. We will see you next episode.
Yeah. I'm Mary Larson.
My name's Blake.
And you've been listening to Outlander Cast.